Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today on the menu is going to be the e3 versus e4 push in various d4 openings and in particular Queen's Gambit setups. And the reason why we do this is because I have come across a bit of a discussion on Twitter where there is a lot of good chess stuff is happening. The chess punks were asking a fair number of questions. One player in particular posed a sequence of questions and positions attached to it where e3 and e4 had different evaluations and what is to go for. Now, I do feel that these questions, partially at least, part of the reason why these questions are asked is because of what I would very politely label as miswired chess principles, and I will get to that just about right now, because my general answer to when to play e3 and when to play e4 in d4 openings in a nutshell is that you play e4 whenever you can. That must be your default setting. And the reason for this is actually pure and very, very simple, because your dream in any chess opening is to have a pawn here and then have a pawn here. So you cannot possibly have misgivings / negative feelings, which I do feel, by the way, that there is some, and maybe you will identify with this as I unfold and unpack this concept a little bit deeper, why they don't play this e4, like it's loosening the pawns, the d4 is weak, the pin is gonna be annoying. There are all kinds of essentially non-existent reasons why the e4 push is often replaced with e3. Now, a little bit of a context for this. Something that occurred to me the other day, and I never really verbalized and internalized this whole concept. If you are an e4 player, in every single opening, virtually anything I can think of, you are going to be able to play d4, and actually rather sooner than later. I mean, if you think about openings against the French, it's first move. Against the Caro-Kann, Pirc, Modern, it's first move, you get a second move, you get to play d4 right away. But even those openings that challenge the center and cover d4, you are playing d4, or you can already if you choose to on move 3. And even against e5, you can play the Scotch. But even in the Giacopiano and even in the Ruy Lopez, you actually get to play d4 at one point without any dramas. So long story short, e4 players are very much accustomed to playing d4 at one point of their openings. However, if you are a d4 player, e4 is going to become a live goal for you, one that is oftentimes very, very, very difficult to actually execute. Not only that, but every single, well, not every single, but a vast majority of openings by black, especially those that are fundamentally sound, are designed to actually stop you in your tracks from playing e4. And that's why d5 and knight f6 are the most common moves. So these reasonings should really strengthen your desire to want to play e4 anytime you can. And actually that is one of the reasons why the chess world was taken by a bit of a shock when the hypermodern openings came along, such as the King's Indian and even more so the Grimfeld, and they just went like, oh, you want e4? Sure, you can have it. Or do you want e4? Sure, you can have it. And so this was a rude shock, because for centuries chess players were basically taught to deny e4 as long as you can. Now, let's have a look at the actual exact examples and what I really wanted to talk about. And I think this is actually, I'm going to model you first what I would consider a little bit of an opening perfection, where we are going to see both sides, their intentions, and how they actually fight for this e4 move. And the opening is going to be none other than the classical Slav. Knight c3, knight f6. Note that knight c3, planning to play e4. Knight f6, denying e4. Knight f3 takes c4. Now e4 is possible, but only at the cost of a pawn. The main line in the classical Slav here is to play a4, to deny b5, and then play e4, conquer the center, and take on c4. What does black do? Instant bishop f5, denying e4. So white goes fine, I'm gonna develop e3 and bishop takes c4 first, and then I will take it from there. What does black do? e6, bishop takes bishop b4, a pin to further deny e4. Castles castles, queen e2. Why? To play e4. And now here black has bishop g6 as well as knight d7. And now white finally gets to play e4. But the black army is pretty well positioned. Now bishop takes c3 followed by knight e4 is threatened. So usually we pull back to d3. And this is just the beginning of a huge theoretical line where black normally plays bishop h5. And now this is where theory begins. But now you could see how white really did everything they could in order to play e4. Black tried their best to stop it. They actually didn't manage. But right after bishop h5, now black is threatening to play e5 to counterpunch in the center. And so usually the central formation transitions into what we call a French structure, where the bad French bishop is actually a very good bishop outside on h5. Now, when is it not so cool to play e4 in these d4 openings? The answer is very simple. Usually there are very early stages in the game when e4 is actually playable, but is not really significantly better than e3. And usually the reason why early e4 moves are not good is because they usually get hit by a very early e5 or c5, and somehow we cannot retain the center. But the longer it goes on and the more someone, like, let's say they play something absolutely ridiculous, you should never, ever, ever question yourself whether it's e3 or e4. That is just utter nonsense. It's e4 every day of the week because that's center. And I don't want to plug here my Chess Principles Reloaded center course, but that revolves around this very idea that without hesitation, as soon as you see some lemony move, you go e4. No question. None whatsoever. Now, Sholom, who submitted 2 questions to me, submitted 2 particular positions. I will show you them, and I will immediately explain to you what is going on there. He gave me a comparison and asked me why is it that in this position white's best is e4, which, by the way, again, should be your gut reaction to immediately go like grab the center, versus knight f3 dc4 when e4 is not that great. Now, once again, these 3 types of questions, in my opinion, was very cool in the sense of being critical and inquisitive, but the reasons for the explanation are quite deep. And so I feel like even if I do explain why e4 is far less attractive than e3, I don't do justice to the notion that e4 is your desire. That's what you want to do, and don't question it, you know, or, well, questioning is not necessarily bad, but the definitive stance should be, I want to play e4 every time whenever possible, and I will do so unless it's proven wrong. That is the mentality. The reason why e4 is not that great here is best understood if I show you why e3 is good. Because after b5, a4, c6 takes, or b3 immediately, we actually break the chain. And after takes, 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 and bishop takes, check, we are also going to win the b3 pawn, and we regain the pawn with massive interest. Now, if we try to do the same with e4, then we are going to find that after b5, a4, black already here has knight f6, but better is c6, b3, and now either bishop b4 and then knight f6, or knight f6 right away is actually already a pesky move, but probably bishop b4 check is the better way to start it with. And now e4 is always going to be an easy tempo to grab onto for black. For example, bishop d2, bishop takes, queen takes. Note that we couldn't take with knight because of pawn takes. So queen had to take, and now after take, black has got the very annoying knight f6 with a tempo. And that is a really, really nasty and unpleasant surprise. Something that, of course, would not bother us at all if the pawn was still back on e3. So that is a very deep and theoretical reasoning. But more often than not, I hear things, and this was also Sholom's position, by the way. I have it here, where he wasn't sure whether to play e3 or e4. That's unacceptable as far as I'm concerned in terms of chess principles. Like, you have no reason here not to play e4. Absolutely zilch. And there are usually two reasons that I often hear that are absolutely invalid, that people say or use to not to play e4. One of them is that it makes d4 weak, which is like incomprehensible to me. I don't understand how this is weak. And 2, that the knights often get pinned, which again is like, so what? Like, why is this a problem? It does absolutely nothing. I can just kick the bishop, it has to go or it has to take, and we are set. No problems. But bishop d3 is also fine. Knight f6, I castle out of the pin. And again, I'm dominating the center. And have a massive, massive lead in the position. Another structure I'm going to show you where there is a fair bit of misunderstanding about what's weak and what's not is a middle game pawn structure scenario. Actually, I will show it to you with e4 like this, where white has a position like this. I'm going to actually trade off a few pieces just to make it a little bit more sensible. So something like this, where people go like, the d4 pawn is weak. And that goes back to the previous argument. And I'm like, how is that? That's not a weak pawn. That is a beautiful central pawn that is firmly guarded and nothing can attack it. Like something that is weak is by definition is easy to access, difficult to defend, and is likely to come under heavy firepower. None of them apply here. And so, once again, your initial instinct is you go e4 any day of the week to achieve positions like this, because that's your dream setup. Control the center like mad. So, once again, the whole problem, to conclude with, is far easier to be approached from the exception side, which is the when not to, and it's usually very early on, like early Queen's Gambit accepted scenarios where this e5 move is very annoying. Or in the other video, the other pawn structure video, I told you that e4 here is a bit too soon. Knight f3 is more accurate, because here after knight c3, again, this e5 move is going to become a nuisance. But yeah, like I can show you another example where it's beautifully demonstrated, which is the Semislav Meran, that both sides aim to fight for, well, for the center in different means. So white plays bishop d3, desperate to want to play e4. And then black takes, b5 back. Now white lost a few moves with moving the bishop, but now e4 has been allowed. However, now black is going to counterpunch in the center with c5 right away. And again, a very dynamic and exciting position occurs, which is of course heavily debated by theory. It is still a theoretical position, but you can see again the concepts in motion, that one wants to play e4, the other one either wants to stop it, or if it's not stoppable, then find a matching countermeasure to somehow counterbalance the very notable central presence of the white pawns. So that is how modern openings, and in fact openings in general, work when they are best played, that both sides are trying to fight for the center by whatever means they can. So once again, to conclude, when to prefer e4 over e3, pretty much every single time. If you can go e4, you should go e4, and then just to think about the exceptions to the rule when it's necessary. But the lower you go on the rating ladder, the more often you find that people allow all kinds of e4s in d4 openings unnecessarily, and immediately we should grab that opportunity and conquer the center. So I hope that this was useful. I hope that Sholom, who posed these questions in particular, will now have a bit of a clearer vision about where to go with these e4 pawns. And yeah, that's gonna be it for now. I'm going to be back with more soon. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, to sub, to super like, and to comment as well to help the algorithm. I will see you in the next video.